You're sitting by a quiet pond one afternoon, watching the sunlight ripple across the surface. Something small drifts into view. A tiny flatworm, no longer than your fingernail, gliding across a leaf. You pick up a stick and, out of pure curiosity, you slice it in half. You feel a little guilty. But then something strange happens. The head grows a new tail. The tail grows a new head. Within a couple of weeks, there are 2 worms swimming where there used to be 1. So you cut those 2 in half. Now there are 4. You keep going. You cut them into 279 pieces. Every single piece becomes a complete, fully formed worm. Brain, gut, eyes, muscles, all of it. Then your alarm goes off. It was just a dream. You lie there staring at the ceiling and ask yourself, does an animal like that actually exist? The answer is yes. It is called the Planarian flatworm, and biologists genuinely argue about whether it can die of old age at all. To understand why, we need to break this creature down trait by trait, starting with the cells that make the whole trick possible. Welcome to Science Curiosity. Inside every planarian is a population of stem cells called neoblasts. In most animals, including us, adult stem cells are specialized. A skin stem cell only makes skin. A blood stem cell only makes blood. Neoblasts do not play by those rules. A single neoblast is pluripotent, meaning it can become any cell type in the body. A brain neuron, a gut cell, an eye, a reproductive organ, anything. And they are everywhere. Roughly 20 to 30% of all the cells in an adult planarian are neoblasts, or their immediate descendants. Compare that to a human adult, where true pluripotent stem cells are essentially absent after we finish developing in the womb. In 2011, researchers showed that transplanting a single clonogenic neoblast into a lethally irradiated worm was enough to rebuild the entire animal from scratch. One cell. A whole organism. Now, the regeneration itself. When you cut a planarian, the wound closes within about 30 minutes. Neoblasts migrate to the injury site and form a structure called a blastema, a small unpigmented bud of dividing cells. Over the next 1 to 2 weeks, that blastema patterns itself into whatever is missing. Lose your head? Grow a new one, complete with a functioning brain and photoreceptor eyes. Lose everything below the pharynx? Grow a new body. The famous experiment where a worm is cut into 279 fragments and each fragment becomes a complete adult was performed by Thomas Hunt Morgan in 1898, and it still holds up more than a century later. Now the aging problem. In almost every animal on Earth, including humans, stem cells slowly wear out. Every time a cell divides, the protective caps on the ends of its chromosomes, called telomeres, get a little shorter. When telomeres get too short, the cell stops dividing. That is one of the main reasons we age. Our skin thins, our organs decline, our wounds heal slower. An enzyme called Telomeres can rebuild telomeres, but in humans, it is switched off in almost all adult cells, which is why we are not immortal. In 2012, Dr. Aziz Abubaker's team at the University of Nottingham found that asexual planarians dramatically ramp up telomerase activity during regeneration. Their stem cells maintain telomere length indefinitely, division after division, generation after generation. In other words, the biological clock that ticks down in the rest of us does not tick down in them. Now consider how they reproduce. Some planarians reproduce sexually like most animals, but the asexual strains do something wilder. They anchor the back end of their body to a surface, then simply pull themselves apart. The tail rips off, crawls away, and regrows a head. The head regrows a tail. 1 worm becomes 2. 2 become 4. And because each fission is followed by full regeneration powered by neoblasts with restored telomeres, the lineage never accumulates the damage that normally ends a life. A single asexual planarian lineage alive in a lab today is, in a very real sense, the same individual that started the culture years or decades ago, just distributed across thousands of bodies. Now the survival tricks. Planarians can shrink. When food runs out, they do not just lose weight, they physically reduce their body size, sometimes to less than 1/10 of their maximum, by consuming their own tissues in a controlled way. When food returns, they grow right back. They can survive being frozen. They can regenerate after losing more than 95% of their body mass. They are resistant to many cancers because their neoblasts appear to have robust genome stability mechanisms that catch and repair the kinds of mutations that would run away in our cells. Radiation kills their neoblasts, and without neoblasts, they die within weeks, which is actually the cleanest proof that the stem cells are the source of the immortality. To recap, this animal has a body that is up to 30% pluripotent stem cells, can regrow into a complete organism from a fragment as small as 179th of itself, actively rebuilds its telomeres during every regeneration, reproduces by literally tearing itself in half, shrinks and regrows on demand, and appears to sidestep the normal aging process entirely. Put all of that together, and you get an animal that biologists genuinely describe as potentially immortal, not in a poetic sense, in a measurable, telomere length, cell division, laboratory-tested sense. To put that into perspective, a human heart cell divides maybe a few dozen times in a lifetime before it gives up. A Planarian neoblast has been dividing, in some lab lineages, for over 20 years of continuous fission with no measurable decline. If you scaled that up to human years, you would be looking at an animal that has been alive, in some form, since before the pyramids were built, still perfectly capable of growing a brand new brain if it lost the old one. The point is that death is not a law of physics. It is a strategy. Most animals, including us, evolve to age because our genes only really care about getting us to reproduction. But a tiny worm in a pond figured out a different strategy entirely. It kept its stem cells young, kept its telomeres long, and simply refused to grow old. It is true that all things must pass, but no one told the Planarian.